Roll call, seating of alternate, Dottie Travers,
Present.
Bob Phoenix, present, Dave Martin, present, Ed Alberbach, present, Mark Benjamin, present. We do have a quorum, all members will be seated. Also present, Rick Shuck, Catherine Rose, right. Thank you, staff. Communications. Nothing to say. Acceptance of the July 8, 2025 meeting minutes.
Phoenix make a motion to accept the July 8, 2025 meeting minutes.
Dottie Travers. Second.
Errors, omissions, and corrections?
I didn't find any.
None. All those in favor of accept as presented?
Phoenix, aye.
Dottie, aye.
Dave Martin, aye.
And Rebecca, aye.
Mark Benjamin, aye. Motion carries unanimous. Meeting to be accepted as presented. Old business,
None.
new business. V2509, 138, 142, and 146 Main Street, request relief from zoning regulation 6.5.5 to allow for the square footage of a residential to exceed the square footage of a commercial in a mixed-use building for the purpose of constructing 20 residential units in a mixed-use building. Properties of 238 Main LLC and T146 Main Street LLC. Application of Matt Green, assessors map 102, block 2, lots 50 and 51, Central Chelsea District, Chelsea Central. All right, the applicant name and address for the record, what you'd like to do, why you need a variance to do it, and what the hardship is.
Okay, Attorney Matt Green, 300 State Street, New London, Connecticut. I represent 138, 142, I'm sorry, T138 Main Street LLC and 1T146 Main Street LLC, who purchased these two buildings in November of 24. Of the owners to combine the two buildings to create 20 residential units on the upper floors while maintaining commercial units at the street level. Proposed are 13 studio, 3 one-bedroom, and 4 two-bedroom units, again with the 2 commercial units at the street level. While they are separate buildings, an adjoining wall will be open between them, creating access between the 2 buildings. There will be an elevator serving the upper floors of both buildings. The existing exterior of the structure will not be expanded. Section 6.5.5 of the zoning regulations requires the square footage of the residential units shall not exceed the square footage of the commercial units. With respect to the both buildings combined, the total square footage for commercial is 3,992 and the square footage for residential is 9,752. As such, we're requesting a variance of section 6.5.5 to allow the square footage of the proposed residential units not to exceed the square footage of the commercial uses of the buildings. The hardship is the regulation itself, as it's outdated and it prevents the adaptive reuse of downtown buildings for residential use, which is prevalent in today's world. The use of upper floors for other than residential today is an extreme exception as opposed to being the norm many decades ago when the regulation was written. The city has acknowledged this and has been planning to amend the regulations to allow for residential use, but has yet to do so. Accordingly, outdated regulations are actually the hardship for proper development of downtown buildings. As we know, back in the old days, the upper floors, there was a lot of office space, and it was used for office space. That is not the norm for today. As I stated, the regulations need to be changed. They are in the process of being changed. How they're going to be changed, we don't know. But one of the things that we are strongly led to believe is that it will allow for residential on the upper floors because there really is no other appropriate use for them as we move forward in the upcoming years. So I believe, again, the hardship is the outdated regulation that prevents for the appropriate adaptive reuse of downtown buildings in this Chelsea district.
The apartments, what square footage you said was
So on the upper floors of the combined, so the way the building is right now, the first floor is approximately 3992, less than 4,000 square feet. One building has, or the upper floors on one building is 4,280 square feet, and the other one is 5,472 square feet. There's a majority of the building on the upper floors. So the idea is to use them for residential, which is necessary to help the economic development of downtowns today, as we know.
Now, the apartments, what are they going to be? 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 1-bedroom?
So there's 13 studio proposed, 3 one-bedroom units, and 4 two-bedrooms. So most of them are going to be studios. No more than a 2-bedroom unit. And again, maintaining the commercial on the first floor.
And commercial, how many units, square footage you said was?
The commercial total is 3992. One building is 2,646 square feet, and the other one is 1,346.
Okay, so you're going to leave the commercial, the size of what it is now, you're going to subdivide it,
It'll stay the same size as the
same size. So the three-bedroom apartment, what would that have? 1.5 baths or one?
No, there's no 3-bedroom. It's 3. I'm sorry if I said it incorrect. 3 one-bedroom.
Oh, 3 1-bedroom. Okay, so they all have 1 bathrooms each, or?
Yes.
It's 13, 3, and 4, 4 2-bedrooms.
Right.
So how many floors do these buildings have?
One of them has 3 floors, and one of them has 2. It might be 4, and one has 3. Let me just look back here. I apologize.
Yeah, but that's one. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
what
okay.
they say, but that seems.
But I think we're counting
That's commercial space.
Here's the buildings here. These 2 buildings.
So one of them has 5.
Okay.
And the. In the past, again, the upper floors, actually, one of the properties, it's believed, these properties were owned by attorney Mark Block. And one of them, he believes, had been used for residential at some point back in whenever, but he's basically used it as storage and some office for himself when he had his office there, like the second floor he used, but most of it remained what was vacant.
They have electric heat, gas, and
I don't know the answer
you
to
don't
that.
know.
I mean, whenever Obviously, once you get the variance to be able to put the residential units in, be up to them to work with the building department to have the appropriate type of, well, to meet building codes with whatever they want to do.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. Do you know, are you aware of any parking availability for these buildings at this time?
Well, there's there's municipal parking nearby, but in the DC district, parking is not a requirement to have parking for residential as you would in.
I could defer to staff about that. I thought it was 3/4 of space per studio and 1-bedroom unit.
Yeah, but in the Chelsea Central, the regulations have kind of waived all the parking requirements. If you were to build new construction, you have to supply it. But in essence, there's a mechanism for the waiver there. And that's really something that the commission on the city plan is going to have to determine and work through if they feel that there's an issue with parking. I don't see an issue with parking with this application.
And I'm basically going to ask this next question, which I'm sure you probably don't have the answer to because you weren't involved in the initial design, but do you understand why there's a consideration for so many efficiency units and not bedroom apartments? Have you been privy to that?
I have not been. I just think looking at the square footage of the building, that's what their architect came up as a design to be able to get 20 units.
Would you, in your opinion, consider that the density of units is the major consideration for economics of this development?
Well, let me address it this way, if I may. I'm here today before the zoning board of appeals to be able to have residential in a mixed-use building. That means, so I'm asking for the ZBA to allow more square footage only because the first floor is only 4,000 square feet combined. To have more, to vary the regulation, which says that you have to have more commercial than residential. All of your questions are 100% appropriate. I believe for the commission on the city plan to address them. And I don't have the answers for that, but with your questions, when I go before the commission on the city plan, I will have the answers.
I see. Thank you.
You stole my parking question.
Sorry.
But you did mention that you're aware, I think you said you're aware that regulations that are processed changed. How are you aware of that?
My conversations with Deanna and with Richard and on staff, we've been probably been a year now that we've been talking about it.
I mean, how far along is that? I mean, you think that's going to happen?
So as of today, I think Deanna and Dan had finalized the kind of working draft that we did with some updates with the consultant so that they can get back a draft to be distributed to other departments and other agencies for review and comment.
Mhm.
So we're still a ways out.
Yeah.
You know, I think people are pushing for the end of the year, but I'm thinking sometime early next year.
And to Bob's point, efficiencies versus bedroom apartments. Would your client be receptive to revising that plan a little bit to make more bedroom apartments?
Again, hearing your concerns and recognize they may also be concerns of the CCP, I will certainly go back to them and advise them accordingly.
Yeah, and that would be good, because I am concerned about it.
But as I said, but in any case, based on the square footage of the buildings, we're just asking to vary the regulation as it is written today.
Yeah, and are these buildings currently being used in any way at the moment?
No.
So I thought, or they're vacant?
Even on the first floor?
I believe it, yes, I believe it. I know Attorney Black, after, building was purchased, he was there for a little bit to get some stuff out, but I believe it's vacant now.
Okay.
And it makes sense if they're gonna be doing construction on the upper floors. And they're also gonna renovate the first level as well.
So the only way to be in compliance with our present zoning regulation, to bring commercial to the second floor. At least, so we would get more commercial space
Probably all the way up to the third floor.
to get it up there, which is just difficult. Anything else we have?
No, I agree with you, it'd be difficult to get commercial space upstairs.
Um, Anything else you'd like to add before I ask for the floor?
No. Okay. Any more questions, I'll try to answer.
Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this appeal? Anyone to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in favor?
All in favor?
If you want to be in favor, you got to come up and give your name and address for the record, and then just so we can record it. Anyone in opposition? Any opposition? Any opposition? Hearing none. Give you an opportunity if there's anything else you'd like to add, because once we close it, we can't take it.
I'm all set, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate the
I
time.
have two people on here. I don't
Okay.
know if we want to ask them if they want to unmute themselves or they're just observing.
All right, those that are online, would you like to speak, if you would like to speak in favor or opposition to this appeal? I'd ask you to unmute yourself, identify yourself, name and address for the record, and give us what's going on, what your opinion is. Either of the people online? Either of the people online?
It's not.
Hearing none? Take a motion to close?
Bob Phoenix, motion to close application, public hearing for application V 2509.
Dottie, second.
All those in favor of close?
Bob Phoenix, aye.
Dottie,
Dave Martin, aye. And Edward Becca. My friend tonight. Unanimous, that's closed. All right, B 2510, 101 Water Street, request relief from zoning regulation 6.5.5 to allow for the square footage of residential to exceed the square footage of commercial in a mixed-use building for the purpose of converting an existing commercial to a 63-unit residential building. Relief from zoning regulation 6.5.2 to allow residential use on the first floor of a mixed-use building. Relief from zoning regulation 6.4.4.1 to allow for the conversion of a commercial building to a multifamily building where the structure abuts a sidewalk or public street to allow for residential on the first floor. Property WW Water LLC, application of Master Green, Esquire, this is 2, Block 6, Lot 62, Chelsea Central. Name and address for the record, which is all to do.
Attorney
Need a
Matt
variance.
Green, 300 State Street in London, Connecticut, and if I just may, hand out some additional.
You want me to call up any specific exhibits, Attorney Green? If you want me to call up anything specific,
that.
I can put it on the screen. But that's fine.
Okay. Glad you like it, Chair.
I had 6, I probably left one in my office. Sure. Oh, here it is. Okay,
Before you put the fence up.
yes. All right, 101 Water Street was purchased by WW Water LLC in June of 25. The property is located in the Chelsea Central Zone across from Chelsea Harbor Drive with an unobstructed view of the marina and the harbor. It's the intent of the owners to convert the building into 63 residential living units consisting of 38 studio and 25 one-bedroom units. The existing exterior of the structure would not be expanded. Section 6.5.5 of the zoning regulations requires a square footage of residential use not to exceed the square footage of commercial use. The total square footage of the building is 34,440 square feet, with the first floor having 15,720 square feet and the upper floor is 18,720. Section 6.5.2 of the zoning regulations prohibits residential on the first level for mixed-use properties. Section 6.44 prohibits residential uses on the first floor or any portion thereof of any structure that immediately abuts a public street or sidewalk. The regulation requires that the next step, if there was the residential, that this commission of the city plan determined by a 2/3 vote, that first floor and a portion thereof, by special permit, could be used for residential, provided that there's not a more viable use. And again, it says not for the foregoing notwithstanding, no residential use shall be permitted on the first floor or any portion thereof of any structure that immediately abuts a public street or sidewalk. It's the intent to creatively adapt this building to residential, thus requiring the following variances. Now, I'm listing all of these variances and I'll go back and I'll explain why and narrow it down. So the three variances I said are 6.5.5 to allow the square footage of the proposed residential use not to exceed the square footage or to exceed the square footage of any commercial use, very similar to the last application. The regulation, again, is outdated. It prevents the adaptive reuse of downtown buildings for residential use. The use of the upper floors for other than residential in today's world is an extreme exception, as opposed to being a norm many decades ago when the regulation was written. Looking also for variance of section 6.5.2, which prohibits residential on the first floor for a mixed-use property. The hardship is the location and construction of the building on the lot, the configuration of the lot, the elevations and topography of the lot abutting on 3 different public streets. In addition to the regulation itself, again, as it's outdated, and that prevents the adaptive reuse of downtown buildings for residential use. And it's too general, preventing consideration of unique factors such as what presented here. The variance of section 6.44 to allow residential use on the first floor and any or portion thereof of any structure that immediately abuts a public street or sidewalk. The hardship there is location and construction of the building on the lot, configuration of the lot, the elevations and topography of the lot abutting on 3 different public streets. In addition to the regulation itself, it's outdated, prevents adaptive reuse of downtown buildings for residential use, and it's too general, preventing consideration of unique factors such as presented here. The regulations as they're written now require office space in the upper floors. This thought process is outdated. I have made reference before, at least for the past year, the city has suggested that it would be seeking to amend the regulations to make it easier to utilize the upper floor of the downtown buildings for residential use. The concept of requiring commercial on a first level building is understandable in a downtown area. It makes sense at times. However, there are times when regulations do not make sense, and as such, we have the ZBA. And as you know, the ZBA has the pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 8.6, it has the authority to determine and vary the application of the zoning regulations in harmony with their general purpose and intent, giving due consideration for conserving the public health, safety, convenience, welfare, and property value solely with respect to a parcel of land where, owing to conditions especially affecting the parcel but not affecting generally the district in which it's situated, a literal enforcement of the regulations would result in exceptional difficulty or unusual hardship, so that substantial justice will be done and the public safety and welfare secured by granting such a variance. This building is unique. It sits on 3 streets: Water Street, Market Street, and Chelsea Harbor Drive. It's the only building in this triangle of streets. Adjacent to it is a parking structure which utilizes the mixed elevations appropriately. The elevation of the lot differs dramatically as the building on Chelsea Harbor Drive frontage is elevated considerably from the lot level to make the building appear to be on the second level, which is this photo here. You see, first level is at least 10 feet above ground level. The ground level is parking, and there are 17 steps required to reach the first level of the building, which is photo number 2. The floor level of the Market Street frontage is in excess of 7 feet higher than the street level and has never been used for access to the building. That's photo number 3. You see the street, you see the floor level, that's ranges from 7 to 10 feet above street level because of the angle. It's not possible to create access from Market Street side of the building to the first level. One half of the building on Water Street front is also elevated from the street level, which you can see in this picture. It's approximately, it's elevated approximately 6 feet, and it's set back about 70 feet. The front door is set back about 70 feet from the sidewalk, from the public sidewalk. The other half of the building, you'll see here, this is the front of the building on Water Street. The other half is elevated, and there's no direct access from the street because, again, it's set way back. And you'll see that there's underground parking. So to have first floor commercial there, or the intent to be able to walk to it, is not possible. This is just another photo showing the front door and how it's elevated from the street with the stairs, and then it's about 70 feet. This is just another picture of the front, as well as this. The uniqueness of this building makes for more of a pedestrian residential setting than to attract commercial. And these are 2 diagrams or 2 renderings which show what a residential setting could look like. This building is unique as it appears to be the only downtown building which does not have a first floor level, which actually abuts a public sidewalk or street. All of the downtown buildings, you can step from the sidewalk into the building. Those types of buildings are appropriate to have commercial on the first level, and the intent of the regulations is for those types of buildings. This building is not conducive for retail. It's too far off the street. The other option is to have office space on the first level, because we all know the market for office space has changed dramatically. And it will continue to not get much better. There are currently many vacant storefronts that are yearning for retail right now. We don't need another vacant first level based on outdated regulation or outdated thoughts. Having this property as residential will help spur the development desired. Due to the uniqueness of this building, the landscape design will make the building a nice residential setting to enhance downtown. I'm going to go back to 6.4.4. It states that no residential use shall be permitted on the first floor unless the CCP determines by a 2/3 vote of the members present and voting that the first floor or any portion thereof, any structure for which the special permit is sought is not reasonably conducive to the uses listed in the Chelsea Central District, and also determines that permitted residential use of all or a portion of the first floor of the structure is more viable use. Foregoing notwithstanding, no residential use shall be permitted on the first floor or any portion thereof, or structure that immediately abuts a public street or sidewalk. And that's kind of why we're here in part on this, to seek a variance. I know that's the interpretation of the city, but I don't necessarily agree with that for the following reason. The term abut means to border on or be next to something. It refers to having a common boundary or touching along an edge. There is no part of that first floor of this building or any part of the building which is proposed to be used for residential that abuts a public street or sidewalk. As stated previously, while the building abuts Market Street, the first floor is elevated 7 to 10 feet above, and as such, they do not abut. That is not the intent of the regulation. The intent of the regulation is that if I have a storefront and I'm stepping from that street into the front door, not looking up 7 to 10 feet, I don't believe that ever was the intent of the regulation. And if it was, it just doesn't make sense for this particular building. The interesting part of why I'm asking for all these variances is because we're now required to go to the CCP for step number 2. I would suggest that the CCP in a mixed use, or having the ability to vary the regulations and allow for residential, is really the role of the ZBA. And I believe there's case law that states that, but I don't want to get into that. But I do believe that the role of the Zoning Board of Appeals is to vary the regulations when you look at the regulations and you believe that applying them as they are doesn't make sense for a particular building. Not for the district as a whole, not for all the building. It's unique to a particular building. And in this case, I'm submitting to you that this building is unique. If we do go to the CCP and the CCP requires there to be commercial, or they make, I don't know what they're going to do. Right now, we don't have a regulation that steers us in one particular direction. It is the proposal of my clients to have all residential. And I personally think it makes sense in the development, and it will help downtown. But if the CCP then goes down a different route, where are we? So I need to, what I'm hoping is that if you grant the variance under 6.44, I don't need the variance under 6.55. However, if you deny it under 6.44, then I need it under 6.55. So for me to withdraw before I know what you're going to do puts me imperils me a bit. If the ZBA had the authority to make the decision that the CCP is going to make, which I believe you should have the authority under state statutes, then I could ask for one variance. But there's step two, and I don't know, I hope I'm not confusing you, but it's confusing for how we have to proceed because of the unknown part B. And again, it's my hope and expectation that you will agree with me and we'll have a healthy discussion with regard to 6.44. And then if that is granted, then I don't have to worry about 6.55 or 6.52. The first floor, I remind you, the first floor is 15,000 square feet. That is a lot of square feet. There are not, if you look at what is in the CC zone, there aren't many uses that would be conducive for that first floor. There aren't businesses nowadays that are gonna have 15,000 square foot of office space. There's not 15,000 square foot of retail. If you look at the potential uses, ideally, I know that the city staff in the memo, they indicated that this building has historically been used as commercial. That is correct. But the second floors and the third floors and the fourth floors of the downtown buildings have also been used for commercial. That is outdated. So if we can't go back to say what has historically been used, we need to look to the future to see what we have. We need to look to the future. And again, what I'm stating here is this building is unique in the aspect that it's on its own little island. It is not conducive to commercial in any way, shape, or form in today's market. And as we move forward to the future, I do not see it in the future as well. I think this building's been vacant for almost 10 years. And we don't want to get into a situation where we're going to have the upper floors of this building become residential and have a vacant 15,000 square foot on the first floor. We don't want that. The idea, if you can fill up 15,000 square feet of residential, it's going to help all of those buildings right across the street that now have residential on the upper floors but have vacant storefronts. It's going to help spur economic development. It's going to be a nice residential setting. It is going to enhance downtown.
Pretty nice square, I saw somewhere there was like 1,200 square feet or something of commercial.
So, yes, originally,
1158.
1158.
so originally when so initially an application was filed by my clients in which I submitted a subsequent application. It did show commercial because that was what was presented, or that was what was recommended by the city.
Okay. So that's gone, or it's still there?
At this point, we're looking to do all resident. See, Mr. Benjamin, here's the problem. If you were the board to make that decision, I could say to you, if you want us to have 1,200 square foot, we could try to figure it out. I mean, however, not, but we have to go to the next step.
Mhm.
And that's kind of what makes it difficult for us. We would like it all to be residential, but if you say no, and it's going to be it's got to be commercial. We don't know how much commercial when we go to the next step. And again, if we don't get this variance with regard to what the quote unquote abutting the public street or sidewalk, if we don't get a variance from that, then that whole side, you're looking at a significant amount of commercial space that would be required. That doesn't make any sense, because to get to that, you have to go through the main building. you know, again, along Market Street, if you had that as commercial. So this is a unique building. The ultimate design and layout can be modified, but again, I think the rule here, I hope I can ask you guys to look, guys and girls, I apologize for the guys, but ladies and gentlemen, I would ask that we look to the future and think about what this building could be as all residential and how it is different from every other building for the most part in this CC zone, CC district. So,
The first floor is 15,000 square feet, you said?
yes, sir. And I really think that these are the types, this project here, what I'm coming to before is exactly what the ZBA is intended to hear and address. I know a lot of stuff comes before you, but I really, and I go to ZBA quite often, but this is one that I think is really unique, and I think it hits all of the bullet points of why a variance should be granted. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure there are a number.
You mentioned that, there are this particular building, here, 63 studio, is that what the projection was?
63 total residential living units,
63 total, okay.
38 studio and 25 one-bedroom units.
Okay.
And with that, I will tell you, there is plenty of parking with this building. So parking will not be an issue. So the real concern here is the 15,000 square feet on the first floor. And when I tell you, when I say the first floor, it's not really the first floor, it's really the second floor. And that's what I'm hoping that you all can recognize that and say, you know what, it really doesn't make sense that's not really the first floor of what the regulations intended to address.
Parking under this building, is that, did I
Yes.
follow that correctly?
Yes,
So it's, okay,
I think there's 70 parking spots or something like that. Okay.
so that's
54.
what's,
54? Okay.
so. Do you know what this building has been used for historically?
I know back in the old days, when the CBT was there. I think the most recent use, my recollection, there were a couple lawyers in there.
Lawyers, the IRS has been in there, Social Security. Okay. Okay, you should get your phone books in there. I've been in town too long.
Yeah, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what, the past 8-10 years,
There's been something in there on the second and third floor offices, but I know for another reason. You know, but I've been in there.
yeah, but I think after the bank left, it sat vacant. I think a couple lawyers went in to take advantage of cheap rent.
Mhm.
That's what
A lot of
lawyers do.
squatters. Understand.
If your clients, just the actual, possession of these apartments, are they gonna be condos at any time, or are they strictly rentals?
They're luxury apartments,
Rentals,
yes.
and again, I go back to the 38 efficiency units, just On a personal note, I have a little bit of heartburn with so many efficiency units being developed in the harbor area, of downtown, but that's just a personal note. So
I, yeah, again, I think this basically this one, there's plenty of parking for that, but I understand the concern, but again, if they were on the upper floors, I guess.
yeah, I mean,
I hear what you're saying, but you know, the interesting part about this building is they're gonna have some great views. And it will, attract a higher market.
My opinion, not very much to say. I agree with Bob that, you know, I have the same feeling. I think it would be, I agree, there's a great view and attract maybe higher rent. That being the case, I'd much prefer to see more bedroom apartments and less. One other question. 54 spots parking underneath the building. I'm just curious, is there access directly from underneath the building where the cars are going to park directly into the building? So
Yeah,
I know there's
there's
a
an elevator.
staircase or an elevator
There's an
inside that you can't see. From the
There's the elevator, and then there's those 17 stairs that I showed you.
And to confirm, this has been vacant for many years.
But again, I apologize for keep saying this, I really want to focus on the aspect of allowing residential on that, what we call the first level, which is the first level of the building.
Yeah.
But because of the topography, because of the elevations, because of the uniqueness, the way this is set, it's not really the first level. And that's what I really would hope that you focus on, because that's the variance that I'm trying to get.
And the city, the discussions that's happening with the last variance we talked about, that's applied.
If you grant the variance on 6.44, then I can withdraw the variance, or the public hearing is closed, or not have to close. I mean, I could, public hearing will be closed at that time. You could deny the variance on 6.55 and 6.52 because that wouldn't be necessary. Am I correct?
Yes, so, and it's really confusing because we're really discussing two separate development types.
Right.
Mixed use, and I'll just keep it without getting into the specific sections that we get tripped up on. Mixed use is one type of development. Multifamily is another type of development. In this case, both those types of developments has a theoretical commercial component to the first floor. If an application came in under mixed use development, and it was just the mixed use regulations that you were looking at varying, if they were granted, the applicant would move forward to the commission on the city plan based on those variances for a mixed use building. If an applicant made a submission to the commission on the city plan for a multifamily, because we're talking two separate development types in our regulations, the way that's written, and I do concede that 6.4.4.1 prohibits the residential use on the first floor of any structure that abuts the street. I see that as, if that's the path that the applicant wants to go with that application to the commission, then that's the appropriate variance. I think what it's kind of coming down to, it's coming down to the board has to kind of determine that, you know, which path, you know, are you gonna look at mixed use or multifamily. The section in the multifamily that talks about the 2/3 vote of the commission. That's not the commission varying anything. That's the commission making the determination on the viability of that specific project with regards to the residential on the first floor. But I do agree and believe that if that's the path that it goes, then that variance is required to 6.4.4.1. But if the board decides that it's more appropriate as a mixed-use building, it's up to the board to decide,
Well-
because it's convoluted between the two different types of development.
See, I'll, again, and I appreciate it, you're loosening a couple of the cobwebs in here, so I appreciate that. The problem that we have, let's say you do grant under 6.4.4.1, where you say you can have residential that abuts a sidewalk, even though I don't think that, but let's say we all, for intents purposes, we say that's what it does, and you grant that. I then go to CCP. And CCP could grant me the whole first floor be residential. And we've addressed the variance of what abuts. They could also come back and say, we don't want the whole first floor residential. We understand the variance you granted, but I want this portion of the building to be commercial. Then I have to come back here to get a variance for mixed use. So,
And I don't interpret it that way, because we're talking two different, and this is where it gets confusing. It's two different applications, two different development types. You don't look out of one section of the regulations at another section of the regulations, even though technically you're on the right track, because I would agree with you that it's got a residential component, it's got a commercial component, it's a mixed-use building. But based on staying in the track of an application, you don't look into the requirements of another application to make a determination on another. In this case, they're two different development types.
well, again, I under normal circumstances, you're 100% right. But unfortunately, we got to go to step B, and step B is they can grant all residential, or they can say, I don't. And as you know, when you go to a CCP or a planning zoning commission, they can have you modify your plans right then and there, and you modify them, and then they could, they could continue the public hearing, you modify your plans, and then they can approve you. I wouldn't be able to do that without coming back to, let's say they say, we want you, we agree we're gonna have residential on the first floor. 6.4.4.1 is been varied, that's not an issue, but we want 4,000 square foot of commercial. It is now a mixed use building. I didn't get a variance for a mixed use building, I only got a variance for that, so
And
then I
I-
have to come back here. So
And I agree with you.
that is the,
Yeah.
that's why I really think we need, if you granted me a variance that I could have residential on the whole first floor, notwithstanding what that regulation says, having to go to the CCP, then the CCP, in my mind, has to give consideration to the variance. We then have a variance for residential on the entire first floor. So it's unfortunately the way the regulation is written, it is, that's why I had to go two different routes.
Did everybody review the exhibit 9? But for the letter from planning and neighborhood service, because that's really the sticking point.
Yeah.
And we're going back and forth, and I'm sitting here. I'm not comfortable keeping it this loose, honestly. I just don't. I would personally, I'd like to see, maybe 7,500 square feet of commercial. I think it's a good idea, but I think that there's something that could be done, whether it was a bistro or something. You know, I'm just saying something that could service these things. But the idea of, hey, if I can do this, we'll do that. If I can do that, I can do that. I mean, I'm at a point of, I would like an opinion from Corporation Council of which way this should go. Or I wouldn't mind punting it to CCP and letting them bring it back with their recommendation. Well, you know, which isn't the right answer, but.
Well, if I can add to that, I'm sitting here wondering why your client didn't first go to the building department and ask for one or the other of a new CO. The building's been vacant for 10 years, according to the building code. The CO, the existing CO for the building has expired for lack of use. Not that the building has been condemned in any way, but to reoccupy this building should have to redevelop and reoccupy this building. There should be a new CO issued. So if it's going to go with residential units, the CO would have to be one or the other. It would either have to be a mixed-use building and brought up to the existing mixed-use fire codes, or it would be a multifamily building and brought up to the multifamily, I forget which classification it is right now, but the CO would have to be issued based on one of those two occupancies.
So first, in order to even get a building permit, you have to have a zoning permit. And that zoning permit, we have to go through this process. So to answer your question, my client has had extensive discussions with the city. They have talked about different plans. They already have a demolition permit for the internal demolition. So they have done their homework, and this is the path that we have to go down. Unfortunately, the way the regulation is written is bad. That's the best way I can put it. It's bad.
Yeah,
And
our problem with that is that it is the regulation.
no, well,
We're not here to interpret it. We're here to issue a variance based on a hardship. A hardship that surrounds the property. And we really can't, because it is our duty to uphold the ordinance as they're written, we can't ignore those. So we're kind of in a.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. It's not your duty to uphold the regulation as it's written. It is the duty of the CCP to do that. Your duty is to look at the regulation to see if it applies to this particular situation and to vary.
I don't think we can look at the ordinance and say that it creates a hardship.
Well, I think you
It's our guide for what we need to have in place before we can judge a hardship exists. So,
I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. I think if you.
well, let me give you an example. The police in town have a overall speed limit of 25 miles an hour. If they decide that 45 miles an hour is acceptable, they're ignoring the local ordinance that says that the speed limit is 25 miles an hour. They do not have the authority to do that. Whether or not they do that is a personal decision. But I don't feel that it's our place to go ahead and say that the ordinance creates the hardship. I
let's say-
understand where you're coming from with that.
I want to take your same example. Your role is then, if for some reason you think that 45, this is a wide open street and 25 does not make sense here, it's more accidents at 25, or it's a hardship 25, no one's ever going to get down the road. And you have the ability to change that to 45, you can change it to 45, and that is your role.
But we
You-
don't
you-
have that ability.
Oh,
We,
you do.
we have to
That's what-
rely on what.
No,
the
I
city-
respect this review with you. You're the zoning board of appeals. You are not the city.
But
of
based on
Norwich.
hardship,
You are not the city of Norwich.
the
You are a
ordinance cannot be the
separate
hardship.
You are a separate entity. And you need to look at the regulations and make a determination if they should be varied. And you look at the uniqueness of a particular
You
project.
can't do that arbitrarily, though. We have to have a basis. We have to have
Absolutely, there's gonna be a
a
hardship.
firm
And I,
hardship,
and I,
not based on the information that we have to go by.
and I believe I laid out a hardship. We talked about topography, we talked about elevation, we talked about the uniqueness of this building on 3 streets. How many buildings are on 3 streets? How many buildings have this? So it's unique to the building. If you look at the regulations, it's unique to the building, not similar to other buildings in the district. So this is unique to the building, the elevations, the topography, the location, the setback of this, of the entrance, 70+ feet from the street. As I said before, the elevation of the first floor. There are many factors which a variance could be granted. Many factors, many hardships. This is not 138, 146 Main Street where you step from the sidewalk into the front door. This is not that, sir.
Um,
I don't mean to argue. I'm just trying to say, one of the things that I.
You're an attorney, you're supposed to.
No, but I just like to point out, because a lot of times when I go to a ZBA or I go to a plan, they always look to staff, and I will tell you this, he's one of the best people I've dealt with and deal with in many towns. He's easy to deal with, he's knowledgeable. I like dealing with him, so I'm, you know, and if we disagree on something, it's an intelligent conversation, it's all good. But one of the things that staff, if staff was to dictate, we wouldn't need you. They would just make the decisions. That's why we have you. You know, and that's why we have judges. We have judges who don't necessarily listen to prosecutors or defense. They sit there and they hear, and then they make their own decision. So you guys are the judges. Guys and
anything
girls.
else I have? Okay. Is there anyone else to speak in favor of this appeal?
Well, I have with me as one of the owners and 2 of the architects of the team architects. So I don't know that they don't have anything to add, but if they want to state their name and say they're in favor of it, they can say that.
Favor,
Your name and address?
Adam Sweeney. 1829 Park Street, at 39. I just wanted to point out that, where you see the dark gray, that's where the entrance is. That's the 70 feet coming in there. So not only do they have to go up steps, yeah, that's the entrance, right there, right. So not only, I mean, they have to go up like 6 steps there and more steps on that side, just to get to that front entrance. This other part here, you take a drop because, you know, the land goes straight down to the lower level for the parking garage that ramps down. It's not a flat parking lot there. It goes down. And then also, if you look at the elevation of the facade, it's not typical storefront retail type of building the way it is across the street. So this little piece here that juts out, there's 2 narrow windows, and then you have a concrete aggregate. It's like a solid wall. So there's nothing about the building that says I'm commercial, I'm a store, I'm a cafe, I'm that. And that's also what people look for when they're walking. When people are going to walk along this street, they will most likely, if these things ever fill up, go across the street, because that's where it's all the more inviting shops and storefronts. This side here, you have plaza, and then you have the wall of the parking garage, that large garage. So most people won't even feel to walk on this side in the first place.
If I just add to that, it's the intent, if you look at this photo from the Water Street side, is to create a little bit like a park-like setting here. You know, for the residents. And it's the same on the backside here for the views on the harbor.
Only because you brought that up. And my first statement was about the fence. Just while I got the owners in front of us, we've got a zoning regulation on fence height. On a corner of a lot, that it can't be higher than 3 feet. I understand it's a construction fence and it needs protection. But that fence on the corner of Market and Chelsea Harbor is too close. It's making a safety concern.
Okay.
You know, that just needs, if you guys could just kick it back at least 45 degrees. I went through there the other day and almost got killed.
Okay.
So, you know,
I
totally
was
off the
not,
record, but
yeah, no,
but
that will.
if you come up to that light.
Fully noted. I will tell you the reason why that was done is because there are a bunch of vagrants that are hanging out.
Inside and under the building.
They keep going in and lighting off the smoke detector, lighting off all the fire extinguishers. I'm a fireman in town. I appreciate the fence. I just, it's slowing down the problem, but just that. Yeah, but if we could just kick it back a little bit, just to clear that
Will
intersection.
do, thank you.
I didn't even get that yet, because I'm not. Sure, please, come forward, name and address for the record.
From Joseph Lambert.
Yep.
I'm one of the owners of WW Water LLC. As development team, you know, we did over 700 units in Connecticut. Mostly downtown, mostly in Hartford and some other cities. So, same scenario, getting abandoned, old building, converted and bring to life this building. You know, this building went through 2 foreclosures in the last 7 years. It's finally was sold at the auction. Even we was discussing with the owners before the auction. We had a contract, so really with the and we negotiating with several other properties in Norwich. We really think we like the city. It's a great city so far. Like we got the building permit, was really great experience to working with the city of Hartford and the building department. And it was done expeditiously with the fire department review and everything was done within 2 weeks, and we got approval. The architect they prepared the drawings, but every process to get it. So it's a pleasure. We'd like to be here. We did over 3,000 units in New York. We close to probably 1,000 units going to be in Connecticut by the end of next year. We're very active. We have a big team. We have invested. We're discussing this project with MRTA. We're very pleased because Norwich is the first to sign with them. MRTA to get the financing for this project. We have discussion with Brown and other people. So, and we would like to do with the waterfront development, which is coming from August 1st and to finish by. However, we want to be in line to complete our project, and it's, I think it's going to be very important for the city. In fact, there are expeditious approval, so we can, you know, move forward.
Anyone else speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor?
Well, yeah, this is a Herman Cortez Vargas, architect for the, like a design for the 29 Park Street in Hartford. No? The 29. Okay. I want to just emphasize what the attorney has said before and also Nathan. This building is basically an island. It's between there is surrounded by 3 streets, and there is no inviting. It's kind of a street which goes from Market to the corridor, Chelsea and Water. Is this distance in there that has nothing more than half of the island is a parking lot. You know, nothing attractive just to go there. And there we have a building. But my point is, when you're trying to put retail in any place that you can put it, you need people to go to that retail. And people, they cannot go there across the street only to have only one building. That's it. And across the street, we have the whole building, all the buildings that unfortunately they are empty right now. But that is going to this situation that once we put that building in there, and what the attorney has said before, all that we have 63 apartments, just to multiply by 2, so at least we have 120 people that they are going to able to meet some barber shop, deli or so on and so forth. So I think it is a moment to understand that even if we put commercial in there, just to get the 50% to 7,500 square feet for the bistro that you mentioned, no one's going to go in there. And that is a very famous bistro. That is something the most important thing that people go there. People doesn't go there unless that is a destination. If we are going to put in there a three stars Michelin, maybe people will go there, but it's not the case in Norwich. So I think allowing us to build whatever we are thinking is going to improve the area. It's going to be more circulation to the not to our build, but to the front of the build, to the street across, because it's the one that has the ample, how it's called, sidewalk, and then really the buildings are on the sidewalk, not 75 feet away from the sidewalk. So I think it's kind of I would say, I am an architect, not an attorney, but it's kind of a no-brainer not to allow us to develop this one and bring some more people to downtown, which is going to help everyone at the end. Yes, about somebody mentioned about the one-to-one studios or so on and so forth. It's something we can still manage. Can use no problem. We can redesign, do layout or stuff like that. But basically, what I want to say. Thank you.
Can I just echo a couple things, and I don't want to keep you all much longer here, but I'm turning that clock, so I apologize. But you know, your comment about 7,500 square foot, and I understand it would be nice to have a bistro in there. The problem is this: it'd be nice to have a bistro across the street. It'd be nice to have a bistro at 148 and 146 and 138 Main Street. It would be nice to have a bistro, and there are so many vacant storefronts. And I think the idea is, if you really think about this, being on an island, I'm going to call it an island, and being on an island itself, you're 70 feet from really the public sidewalk for the access into that building. You're taking away from the park-like setting that you can have for that residential facility. And that residential facility, by it would be upgraded by having its own residential, its own landscape component in that residential setting. I think just adds more to the downtown than all of a sudden now you have to take up, because now you have to let people know that there's commercial in there. And 20 years ago, I would agree with you 1,000,000%, because you always want to build storefronts. But nowadays, there's no office, and what we are trying to do is we're trying to get more people downtown, more people with money, so that they could go into so there can be more retail, there can be more bistros, there can be more restaurants, and more restaurants, because I believe that the key to any downtown are a lot of good restaurants. You know, a lot of good restaurants, and people will come to downtown. And I think by mixing this with commercial, it takes away from this building. And I think, restaurants are a tough business, and a lot of them fail. Most of them fail. And we don't want more vacancy. And that's what the fear is here. So in this unique building, let's create a residential setting, because this is unique. It's its own little island. It's there. And then it will help. I think it will help everything else. And again, if it's designed appropriately, and as we go to CCP, you heard the architect indicate that if we need to redesign the types of units, we can redesign the type of units. But we really want to be able to have the ability to have this be all residential. I just think it's going, the variance that we're requesting for all residential is going to benefit downtown. I will tell you this: if this was a building a different location, you have land and you were building, I wouldn't necessarily agree. Again, if this was Main Street, I wouldn't agree. But this building is different. So, I don't know where we stand because I don't wanna. This is, and
Yeah, we're gonna have some discussion before we decide to close this.
yeah, please, yeah, okay,
Because once we close it, we can't take anything else.
correct.
So we're gonna discuss it openly. But let's get through the affirmative and
Okay.
negative. Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone else to speak in favor? Anyone to speak in opposition? Anyone online in opposition? Anyone in opposition? I know you four are here in opposition. All right. Does anybody have any more questions for the applicant? Or for me or for Rich?
I'll just ask one question. I've seen, large apartments or residents like this in Arlington. On the first floor, they had, instead of apartments, they had like a nice, small, like convenience store, like a little supermarket type of thing, which is really handy for the people living in that building. And I was wondering if we somehow decide that we need to have some kind of commercial area, that would be something.
So there may be appropriate amenities for the residents of the building. But again, I go back, listen, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you guys 100%. If all those other storefronts downtown were full, and if they were full, I would say, you know what? Then there should be, because now you're bringing another 50 people, 100 people, whatever it is downtown, and let's have another restaurant, let's have a bistro, let's have a Venus store or what have you. We also, when we're trying to look at luxury apartments or make this, and again with the water views, we don't want to cheapen it by having whatever you're going to put in there, you want to make sure that it is upper scale. So, but again, I look at this particular building, and I'm walking down the street and there's a restaurant 70 feet that way, and there's one 2 feet through that door that way. I'm gonna check out that one with 2 feet. I'm not gonna walk all the way up there to check out that menu to find out that I don't like whatever that menu is and then walk back. So that's kind of I'm not gonna be walking down the street to go to and walk 70 feet to walk into a retail outlet or to get a soda when I can walk 2 feet here. And I really think that is the big difference with this building. The only thing that I think it would be appropriate, what it has been used for, would be office space. You have the parking down below and you have the offices, but today's day and age, there's no more office space. So that's why the retail, the restaurant, I don't see it. The office space, that would have been more conducive, but I don't see it today. It's not there today. We all know that. I mean, we've seen what happened. We've seen banks, people don't even have to go to the bank anymore. They don't even need to make a deposit. They do it with their phones. You know, so we don't, the world has changed, and in 10 years from now, it's going to change dramatically more. So, I hear you, and everything you're all saying makes absolute sense, but unfortunately, I don't see it making, let me phrase it. Everything you're saying is understandable, but when you really look at what we're trying to do with this building and look to the future, it just doesn't. Here's a guy who wants to develop a building, wants to make downtown better, and how do we make downtown better? And I think this building is unique.
Is the board more interested in, I suggested legal opinion, on which, or does the board want to close this and pick apart, I agree with Rich. I don't think we can grant all these. And I personally would not grant all residential and handcuff DCP. you know, yeah, I would give them a buffer, but I'm not trying to sway this thing one way or another, but I'm gonna tell you that if it were to vote one way or another, I would not go all residential right now without a legal opinion. I wanna see development down there. I wanna see I love the idea of high-end, luxury apartments in that building. I told you, it's a problem for us. And as I drove in tonight and I looked and I was admiring the view that you could have from those apartments. And I think this is a fantastic proposal, but I do want to do this correctly. And if this were clear, we're gonna go 652, and we're gonna be mixed use, or we're gonna go 644, or multifamily, or vice versa, whichever way is the right way. I just don't like the idea of voting on a variance so to work. That's not fulfilling a hardship. That's making something function. And I think that, and whether we want a request from Corporation Council saying, hey, giving all of these regulations, this is the better way to go, you know, the direction. If you want me to talk to them, I'm up for whatever, but I don't want to just jam this thing right through.
May I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
My suggestion is that we continue today's hearing. We make an application to CCP. We go to CCP, and my argument will be, I mean, they could say, they could give me all residential on the first floor. And I could make the argument that notwithstanding that this does not abut, and therefore I would not need a variance. And just CCP, if they agree with my interpretation of 6.4.4.1, then all good. However, if they come back and they say, no, you know, we like your proposal, but we're steadfast on commercial, then I know I gotta come back to you, and it's already still open. I can grant an extension.
Do we have the
And
time?
I think that's. Attorney Green has a very valid point. When you look at it, and I agree, I'm not disagreeing, but I fall back on, we're talking two totally different application types. And the multifamily application does not say, refer to mixed use. If it referred to and said, under this application, residential uses are subject to the mixed use 6.5, I would say, yes, I agree with that. But because it's, and this is where we get into this confusion, because in our heads, technically, and yes, from a building specific technical standpoint, yeah, it's a mixed use building. But the two applications are different procedures.
Right, but I could go under 6.
I would like that. That was kind of what I said right from the start. Let's, what I said, punt it to
Yeah.
CCP.
Yes.
And
Because what I'm thinking,
Okay.
what's been milling around in my head as well is that we're looking at the building for what it is and always has been. And trying to apply a mixed use code with it. When in fact, if it were to be a multifamily business, leasing office, maintenance office, those would all be accessory uses to a multifamily, is that correct? Which would be allowed.
But then a
would
commercial
not be.
component.
Yeah, it would not be mixed use, so.
No, that would be multifamily with,
Right.
with accessory uses of leasing offices and maintenance staff and maintenance offices and things like that. So that would be a path of least resistance, providing the CCP goes ahead.
Okay.
Gives that. So do we have time Because we are kind of at a time crunch and we're not gonna meet again until September.
I believe
We
it's,
should reschedule.
I believe it's September 9th is our next meeting. I want to verify that because we got a couple meetings that are coming up where the dates were changed from our second normal Tuesday. But from today until September 9th is 42 days. We have to make a decision within 35 days or
I can bring this then.
grant an extension.
Grant what, 60 days or something like that?
I think it's, yeah, I think it's up to 60 days.
So, yeah,
Just
I
from
think,
watching the head nods as I was speaking, Green speaking, I think I'd like to see a motion to continue.
I was gonna,
And
when,
we can request an opinion and we can request be pursued through CCP. And everybody comes back with a little more information.
My question to you is, what are you talking about? Are you talking about both of these, or you talking strictly on the one by the water, you know, let's see? the one that-
Right now, we're only talking about CBT.
Okay, that's the only one you're discussing?
Right, yeah, yeah.
That
The
you're
other ones
saying
are
for an
closed.
extension, the other
Yes.
one is,
Yeah, we're gonna vote on the other one in a
all
second.
right.
I mean, and again, I'm not trying to sway a board, I'm
yeah, I'm right
That's-
there.
oh, I request it, as the applicant, I
Yes.
can request it, right?
yes,
Can
So we'll spare you from having to make that decision.
Thank
I need like 2 minutes to run up and look at the physical schedule to make sure that this, that way we know what day it is.
absolutely.
Should we suspend while we? Think
I
so?
don't think that, we just don't know it. So I think
Should we play the, let's go up to the snack bar?
No.
Intermission?
Not in that building.
Missing,
Trying to provide a little levity.
Unless he's changed it, I got the mind.
Yeah, because it's the only special meeting we talked about.
and then the CCP would need the following.
I think we might be able to get a CCP soon, before us, because they should have an August. We move this forward.
Yeah, I think they're always meeting those next Tuesday, right? Oh,
No,
no,
Tuesday after,
I'm sorry, I'm wrong one.
third Tuesday.
You're right.
September is the correct, and 9th, it's October and November that have changed.
Rich, what do I have to do to get this to CCP for the August meeting? Why? Walk on water? What do I do?
I called Dan or Deanna tomorrow, but I would say it would be an application. So if you explain, I mean, I think we still have, even if it's going under 6.4 multifamily, we still have, well, if you make the argument that it's not abutting the street, it's not an issue.
Right.
So then I guess you would get a whole.
Yeah, I'm just trying to go under 6.4.4.
Point one.
Yeah.
So it would be,
Now, you still want to get an opinion from
I
corporate?
think we should request one, just which way we should go. I mean, I'm all for moving for this. I would just like to know what I want Attorney Green to make an appeal for a variance based on 6.4 or 6.5, not A or B. You know, so
And I respect that, and I think after we go to CCP, and your comment earlier about punting the CCP,
Right.
I think makes absolute sense, and now that we can do it, now that I've come before you and I've heard everything, it now makes sense, let us go to CCP, and then maybe we don't need a legal opinion, because then I'll be under one or the other, but doesn't,
Right.
never hurts to talk to a lawyer.
Another one. So you want a motion?
the applicants made a motion.
Made a
Requested. Based on the applicant's request, a motion to continue. I'd like to make a motion to continue to the next available meeting of the zoning board of appeals, September 9th, 2025. Also to include a opinion from corporate counsel on the, what, validity of
Well,
the
just which,
definition.
the definition, which
Of-
one this fits under the best. And that may be resolved with a decision, with an opinion from CCP prior to our meeting.
So included with my motion.
And, you to get in touch with me, now draft that.
Mhm. If you're allowing Rich and I to work together on the draft to the.
Of course, yeah.
Okay.
Just to be clear.
You want a second?
Yeah, sure, I'll second.
All right.
All those in favor to continue until September second, got it, nine.
Mike.
Nine,
Aye.
Dave, aye.
Bob Phoenix, aye.
And Rebecca, aye. Mark Benjamin, aye. 2510 has been continued until September 9th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the patience. Decisions,
Okay.
2510 has been continued, 2509, 138, 142, 146 Main Street, request relief from zoning regulation 6.5.5 to allow the square footage of residential to exceed the square footage of commercial in a mixed-use building for the purpose of constructing 20 residential units in a mixed-use building, properties T38 Main Street LLC, T146 Main Street LLC, application of Mac Green, Assessors Map 102, Block 2, lots 50 and 51, Chelsea Center District.
Motion to approve, Bob Phoenix.
Mr. Hardship, please.
Hardship being that the existing building already occupies commercial, the commercial space of the existing buildings is already listed and available, and the expansion of the upstairs units would not deter from the character of the building.
What is the 50%? Commercial have to be 50%? What's
Yeah, it was, yeah.
the first floor is not 50% of the residential above.
Right.
You know, there's more than 50% above it because there's multiple, there's more than one floor above it.
Correct, and by creating the, by unification of the two buildings, increases the disproportionate relationship between residential,
It had to be.
and we're looking at a difference of, oh, sorry,
And I would add that commercial, the second, third, and fourth floor is not conducive. If you had to have 3 floors of commercial to meet the requirement.
um, yeah, I don't wonder, where to train of thought, but I don't know, train. Is that, apologies,
We'll just turn it down. That's what he's looking for.
That's what you're looking for?
the percentages, yes. Right, residential exceeds commercial by 41% from 29%, so we're looking at a 12% increase. I don't see as a deterrent, so.
You have a second, right? I would second. You're good. I thought you were, I'm sorry.
No, you got whole thing.
Oh, no, sorry. You want me to pare it down?
I think I got it if that was all of it.
Yeah.
Motion's made in second. Any discussion?
Yeah, basically the hardship is the fact that the building has multiple floors and the only viable commercial usage today is on the first floor. That's the hardship.
I agree.
There's virtually nothing that commercial that's gonna occupy more than the first floor, right, downtown.
Yeah, we don't have the supporting industries such as New Haven has Yale and all their doctors' offices are on second floors of residential buildings, but we don't have that or anything like that, so it's just an impossibility.
No, it's actually, the situation is that, the commercial part of it, you're better off to put residential above. I mean, that's the route a lot of the communities are going now. So essentially, the residential above and then the commercial below is the best route to go with it now. Like I just said, all going that route, no matter what is left with the properties from way back. And the state says we need more apartments, so obviously that's, and plus a positive for the community itself, for taxes, plus people moving in and using the commercial facilities that are in the town.
They will generate usage in the restaurants and everything. Getting the people back downtown. And I agree with Dave. You got this much square footage on the street level and that's all there is.
It's really, yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, there would be nothing to preclude a PPA from renting a space with it. Because you are proposing,
Can't think,
oh, sorry, that would be testimony. I apologize.
can't do that.
All those in favor of grant as presented?
Phoenix, I.
Dottie,
Dave Martin, aye.
Yeah,
Mark Baker, and I unanimous. That one carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Well,
good luck with CCP.
thanks.
Hopefully, hopefully for your sake, you don't see me
I
again.
would love not to, I would love them, and off the record. I gave something away down in this Chelsea, and I'm still paying the price from CCP.
Okay.
There you go.
I have a
Thank
question.
you all.
Richard.
Thank you.
The CCP meeting is the 19th of August. And today is the last day to submit papers for that application or for that hearing. Do you have all the documentation that is needed?
I'll deal with, the end tomorrow.
Thank you. I hope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
All right. We're gonna staff update.
Updates?
Nope, I pretty much put everything in those memos.
Hearing none. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Bob Phoenix.
I second it,
Those in favor of adjourn.
Bob Phoenix, aye.
Dottie,
Dave Martin, aye. And Rebecca. Meeting adjourned 8:39.